Story 1, White Mile Marker 143. The mile marker wasn't there a second ago. It rose out of the whiteout like a tooth, clean, reflective, and wrong mile 143 stamped in black that looked freshly painted, still wet. My headlights caught it and the numbers flashed like they had depth, like you could put your finger in them. I stabbed the brake. 40 tons of freight and diesel tried to keep going. The trailer pushed, the tractor fishtailed, chains clattering like teeth. The steering wheel kicked in my hands hard enough to bruise my thumbs. And on the CB channel 19, someone whispered my name. Rory, don't pass it again. The voice wasn't static, it was close, like it was in the cab with me, breathing fog into my ear. I rolled to a stop on the Dalton Highway, my hazard lights blinking uselessly into a storm that ate light and sound. The wind hit the side of the sleeper with a hollow slap. The temperature readout on my dash jittered between -38 and -40, one like it couldn't decide what kind of miserable it wanted. As I looked at the markers, it was set perfectly straight in the drifted shoulder. No tracks, no plow line, no sign anyone had installed it. My logbook said mile 142. I'd checked it when I passed the last pipeline pump station. There should have been a gentle curve, then another marker, then a pullout where guys sometimes stopped to pee because the cold made you feel like you de-sprung a leak. But the road ahead was a tunnel of white. Behind me in the swirling snow, my own taillights were already a rumor. I took my gloved hand off the wheel and reached for the mic. Who's this? My throat sounded tight, the words coming out like they had to scrape past something. No answer, just the faint hiss of an open line. Then a click, another driver keyed in. Rory, that you stopped. That voice I recognized, Nate Weller. We'd been leapfrogging since Fairbanks. He was hauling fuel, double-checked and sealed. A man like Nate didn't play games. Yeah, I said, there's a marker, mile 143. It just appeared. A silence, long enough that I checked my mirror, half expecting to see Nate's Kenworth sitting behind me. Then Nate exhaled into the mic, a low sound that made the hair under my beanie lift. Don't pass it, he said, don't you move. What are you talking about? Listen to me, you're at the wrong 143. There's two of them. The wind rocked the cab. Something tapped the passenger window, small, rapid, snow pellets. I told myself it was snow. Nate, you're messing with me. I'm not, his voice dropped. You see a truck on the shoulder up there, half buried. As I squinted through the storm, my headlights carved a short corridor before the world dissolved. On the right shoulder, beyond the marker, there was a shape, dark, rectangular, like a trailer corner. My stomach tightened. Yeah, I whispered, I think so. That's where I lost Juno. Juno. My dog, he said, and something raw edged into his tone. She was riding with me last winter. I stopped to check chains. She jumped down into the snow like she always did. I watched her walk straight line toward that marker, like she was on a leash I couldn't see. Then she. Oh, his breath hitched. Then she disappeared, he finished. No tracks, no yelp, just gone. I went after her, took 10 steps past the marker and the storm stopped, like somebody shut a door. And the road, Rory, it wasn't the Dalton anymore. It was a different road wearing the Dalton skin. Same ice, same pipeline to the left, but the mile markers started over. Mile 1, mile 2, like it wanted me to drive the whole thing again. Only there were trucks parked along the shoulder every few miles, all different makes, all running, wipers moving back and forth, and nobody inside. My mouth had gone dry enough to hurt. You're saying there's a loop. I'm saying there's a place out there that takes what crosses that post. Nate's voice was a rope thrown across dark water. I backed up. I got out. I grabbed Juno's leash from the cab, held it out past the marker like a fishing line, and I felt it pull. Is it pulled hard enough to burn my gloves? I stared at the marker. The numbers looked thicker now, almost raised. The black paint seemed to shine. The tapping at my passenger window started again. 3 quick taps, a pause, then 3 more. My eyes slid to the glass. A handprint bloomed there from the outside, pressed into the frost. It wasn't a glove. It was bare skin, reddened and swollen, fingers splayed. My lungs forgot how to work. Rory, Nate said, you still with me? I couldn't answer. I was watching the print. The fingers dragged down slowly, carving 5 clean lines in the frost. The motion was deliberate. Like whoever was out there wanted me to see exactly how long their nails were. A face pressed into the corner of the window, smearing snow aside. Well, it was Nate. Well, the same beard, same hooked nose, same tired eyes. Except his eyes weren't tired. They were wide and wet and frantic. And he was outside my pass. And your door, in a storm that should have buried him in seconds, leaning close enough that his breath fogged the glass. He opened his mouth. I saw his teeth. They were all filed into points. On the CB, Nate's real voice said very softly, "Don't look at him." My stomach lurched like I'd been punched. I snapped my gaze forward. Well, the tapping stopped. Then my passenger door handle lifted. A slow pull testing. The lock clicked. I hadn't unlocked it. My hands shook so hard the steering wheel buzzed. Rory, you hear that? Nate asked. Yeah, I rasped. Do not open that door. Do not crack the window. That thing can't come in unless you make a way. The door handle pulled again, harder. The metal groaned. The cab rocked not from wind, or from something leaning its weight against the passenger side. The marker out ahead seemed closer, like the road was shortening itself. Back up, Nate ordered. Back up right now. Don't take your eyes off your mirrors. My foot found the clutch. The gear shift felt slick under my glove like it was sweating. I eased the truck into reverse. Well, the trailer chains clinked and snapped. Snow hissed under tires. Well, the passenger side pressure vanished abruptly, as if whatever was there had stepped away. I dared a glance at the window. Nothing. Just frost and storm and the smeared handprint fading. But the lock clicked again. Then again. Like someone was playing with the mechanism from the inside. The marker drifted backward in my headlights, shrinking. I kept reversing, slow and steady, my heart beating in my throat. On the CB, Nate was breathing hard. You see the marker moving away? He asked. Oh, yes. Keep going until it's out of your light. I did. The white post finally vanished into the storm. The moment it disappeared, the air inside the cab warmed by maybe 2 degrees. The pressure in my ears eased like I'd popped through a change in altitude. The door lock stopped clicking. I sat there for a long second with my truck idling, hazards flashing, and my hands clenched so tight my knuckles ached. "Nate," I said, "how do you know?" "Oh, because it got me once," he cut in. His voice sounded far away now, as if his mic had moved. "Oh, what do you mean?" Oh, he didn't answer right away. Then he said, "My brother drove this run 2 years back. He called me on the CB yelling about a mile marker that didn't belong. I told him what I'm telling you. He said he'd back up. And then I heard his engine rev. And then I heard a sound like a door shutting on a room full of bees. After that, all I got was his voice, over and over, asking me why I didn't come get him. My scalp prickled. "Did you ever find his truck?" I asked. Nate's laugh was broken. "Find it, Rory, I passed it last week. Parked on the shoulder by the real mile 143, running lights on, wipers going. My brother inside. I can see him every time I drive by. He's sitting in the driver's seat, staring forward. He doesn't blink. And if I slow down, he turns his head and smiles like he's happy to finally have company." The storm outside thickened, swallowing the distance. As I swallowed bile. "Where are you right now?" I asked. No answer. I keyed the mic again, Nate's. Static. As I looked in my mirrors. A pair of headlights bloomed behind me in the whiteout, too close for comfort. As a truck pulled up to my rear bumper, its grill looming, fuel haulers. Nate." He flashed his brights twice. Then his horn blared, one long mournful note. And he rolled forward past me toward the darkness where the marker had been. I yelled into the CB, "Nate, stop, stop." The fuel hauler didn't slow. Its tail lights faded. The whiteout swallowed him. A second later, the storm went very still. No wind, no hiss of snow. The silence felt thick enough to touch. And from somewhere ahead, too far to be real, too close to be safe, I heard a truck horn again. One long note. Then a click on channel 19. And a voice that was Nate anymore, speaking with perfect calm, said, "Rory, don't pass it again." I stared at the blank white road, my breath fogging the windshield. My logbook pen slipped out of my numb fingers and rolled under the seat. On the passenger window, where the handprint had been, 5 new lines appeared in the frost from the inside. Something in my sleeper shifted its weight. I had not been alone for the last miles. A story, too, the way station that wasn't there. My trailer was still rolling when the way station light snapped on. 1 second it was nothing but tundra and a bruised sky. The next, sodium lamps blazed in a neat line, turning blowing snow into glittering needles. A sign swung on chains over the road. "Open, all trucks must stop." I didn't have time to decide. The ice road was polished glass. My rig, Peterbilt with a refrigerated box, was already light in the rear. I downshifted, Jake brake growling, and felt the trailer start to wag. The steering went vague, like the tires had become skates. As I eased into the pull-off with my heart slamming. The booth window glowed wars. Zam yellow. The man inside raised a hand. But as I rolled closer, the man didn't move like a man. His hand stayed up perfectly still, fingers together as if he'd been cut out of cardboard and posed. As I stopped at the painted line, my breath smoked the cab. The reefer unit hummed behind me, steady, normal, too normal. My dash clock read 02:17. My phone had no service, of course. The booth door opened. Well, the man stepped out. He was dressed in dot gear, reflective stripes, thick parka. His boots crunched on packed snow. But his face looked wrong in a way my brain couldn't label at first. It took my eyes a second to understand. His skin was dry and gray, stretched too tight, like it had been shrink-wrapped over bone. And he wasn't breathing. It's not the obvious way, no plume of vapor, no rise and fall. He walked up to my window and tapped the glass with a pen. 3 taps. Then he smiled. His lips didn't crease. The smile was a straight pull at the corners like somebody had hooked strings there. A logbook, he said. His voice sounded like it came through a bad speaker, flat, tinny, with no air in it. I held my logbook up without opening the windows. He waited. Then he tapped again, slower. I cracked the window an inch. The cold hit my face like a slap, but under it, beneath the clean bite of Arctic air, was another smell. Old diesel, a stale coffee, and something sweet and rotten, like meat left out in a warm room. The man leaned closer, sniffing. Name, he said. Callum, I answered automatically. Callum Sutter. His eyes flicked to my face. He repeated Callum, like he was tasting the sound. He held out his hand. I passed the logbook through the crack. His fingers brushed mine. His skin was not just cold, it was sticky like sap, and when he pulled back, one of my glove's fibers came with him, stretching thin before snapping. He turned and walked back to the booths. I watched him go, trying not to breathe too deep. A second figure stood under the lamps near the scale platform. I hadn't seen it at first because it didn't move. It was another inspector, or the shape of one. Reflective stripes parka hood. But the hood was empty. No face, no head. Just dark fabric hanging in the wind. My stomach flipped. I reached for the door lock. Already locked. I glanced to the right. A row of trucks sat parked beyond the station, nose to tail, engines idling, exhaust plumes drifting into the darkness. No drivers in sight. Cab lights on. Curtains drawn. Like a campground. Like a trap. The booth window slid open. The inspector sat inside, lit like he was on display. He wrote something in my logbook with slow, deliberate strokes. Then he looked up and met my eyes through the glass. He held the book up. On the page in black ink, I'd written, "You have been overweight since you left home." My chest tightened. That wasn't possible. I'd scaled in Fairbanks. I'd checked the bills. Reefer load of medical supplies and frozen food, sealed and documented. He opened the booth door again and stepped out. This time, the headless figure by the scale platform turned toward me. Its hood swayed empty. And from inside that emptiness came a faint whispering, multiple voices overlapping like a radio scanning stations. The inspector approached my window. "Oh, step out," he said. As I shook my head, "I'm not stepping out, you can check me from there." His smile widened without changing shape. "You will step out," he said, as if reading a rule. His gloved hand lifted. He pointed at the scale platform. A truck on scale, driver on walkway, procedure. A gust of wind pushed snow across the lamps, and for a second the station lights flickered. In that flicker, I saw the trucks parked beyond. The cabs weren't empty. There were people inside. Their faces were pressed to the glass, pale ovals, eyes open too wide. They weren't moving. They looked like they'd been there a long time. The lights steadied again. The faces vanished. My hands shook. "No," I whispered. The inspector's pen tapped the window once. A single decisive tap. The headless figure drifted closer. It didn't walk, its boots didn't crunch. It slid across the snow like it was on hidden rails. The whispering inside it grew louder. I caught words. "Like Callum. Opens. Ways." My reefer unit changed pitch. A low groan ran through the trailer like something shifting. I turned in my seat and looked through the rear window into the sleeper. The curtain had moved. I hadn't touched it. It lifted slowly, as if pushed by an invisible hand. Behind it, in the narrow corridor between bunk and cabinets, something stood. Something tall. It was wrapped in reflective stripes like an inspector's jacket. But its face was my own. The same stubble, same chapped lips, same panicked eyes. As it leaned forward, as its mouth opened, and it spoke without sound, shaping the words I could read. "Step out." My throat closed. The inspector outside watched me like he could see through the cab, like he already knew. I grabbed the shift, and jammed it into drive. The inspector's hand slapped the door. "A violation," he said. The headless figure surged forward, and suddenly the whispering wasn't outside. It was in my cab, filling the space behind my eyes. I punched the accelerator. The tires spun, chains screaming against ice. The truck lurched. For a second, I thought I was stuck. Then the rig broke free and shot forward. The inspector didn't jump away. He stayed planted, and I drove through him. There was resistance, like hitting a heavy curtain, a wet slap against the bumper. The cab filled with that sweet rotten smell. My windshield wipers smeared something dark. I kept my foot down. The station lights vanished behind me like someone turned them off. The road returned to empty white. My dash clock still read 02:17. It hadn't moved. I drove for what felt like 20 minutes, 30. My hands ached from gripping the wheel, my eyes burned. Finally, in my mirrors, I saw nothing but storm. No lights. No station. I forced myself to breathe. Then the CB crackled. A voice said all trucks must stop. I slapped the radio off. The voice continued. It wasn't coming from the CB. It was coming from inside the reefer trailer. A muffled voice pressed against metal. A Callum, it said, procedure. The reefer unit groaned again. From behind, I heard a slow, deliberate tapping. Three tabs. Pause. Three tabs. Like someone with a pen making sure I understood. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Because when I glanced in the mirror, the row of parked trucks was following me in the storm, dozens of headlights drifting in formation, silent and patient, as if the road itself had decided I was overdue for inspection. Story 3 Black Ice Radio. The first scream came through my GPS. Not my CB. Not my phone. My GPS, mounted to the dash, its calm blue route line tracing the ice road like a vein, spat a human scream out of its tiny speaker, raw enough to make my foot jerk off the throttle. The truck immediately started to drift. I corrected, chains biting, heart battering my ribs. Then the GPS spoke in its usual cheerful voice. Recalculating. The blue route line rerouted. Straight off the road. Straight across the tundra. My hands were shaking so hard the steering wheel vibrated. I'd been on the haul road long enough to know you do not follow electronics when weather turns ugly. You follow reflectors, instincts, and the pipeline when it's visible. Tonight the pipeline was a ghost. The world was white and black and nothing in between. I reached up and muted the GPS. The screen flickered. A dark shape appeared in the map view, an icon I'd never seen. A little black truck silhouette with a red X over it. Then another. And another. They populated the route ahead like a rash. The GPS speaker crackled again. A woman's voice, strained, panting, whispered, "Help, please, he's still driving." My mouth went numb. I drove alone, no passenger, no open comms. Yet the voice sounded like it was inside my cab, pressed into the dashboard. I yanked the GPS cord out. The screen stayed on. It shouldn't. It brightened, then changed. Not a map anymore. A live camera feed. A road at night, headlights washing over ice. A truck hood. But the hood wasn't mine. The emblem on the grille was different. The perspective shook with potholes and wind. And in the bottom corner of the feed, numbers ticked like a timestamp. A 3/14/2023-01/06/19. I stared. My dash clock read 0106. The same minute. The GPS speaker whispered he won't stop. In the feed, a gloved hand reached for a radio mic. The hand was bloody. The camera angle shifted and I saw the driver. A man in a heavy coat, face half lit by dash glow, eyes wide and glassy. He looked straight into the camera. Then he looked past it as if seeing something in the cab. His mouth moved. No sound from the feed except wind noise. But the GPS speaker translated in that calm navigation voice. In 2 miles, take the right exit. The man's eyes bulged. Well, he shook his head violently. Well, the truck in the feed began to accelerate. I felt my own foot press down on my accelerator without deciding to. My rig gained speed. My breath caught. I tried to lift my foot. My leg wouldn't move. It was like the muscle had been cut. I dug my heel into the floor mat and forced my toes up. Well, the pedal stayed down. Well, the engine climbed. My speedometer crept higher. 50, 55, on glare ice. Well, the GPS speaker chirped faster. The feed showed the other driver's hands locked on his wheel, knuckles white. A shape moved in his passenger seat. No, not a person. Something thin and dark, like a shadow pulled upright. As it leaned toward him, the driver started to cry. On my dash, the GPS screen zoomed in. Well, the timestamp matched my time second for second. I wasn't watching a recording. I was watching someone else's present. And my truck was matching his speed. The voice in my cab, still coming from the dead GPS, whispered, "It learns you." I reached for my pocket knife, flipped it open with stiff fingers. ISL. I asked the GPS screen. The blade met something that wasn't glass. It sank in like flesh. Dark fluid welled around the cut, thick and oily. The screen flickered but didn't die. The feed kept playing. The other driver screamed. And my truck surged. 60. The road ahead narrowed into a white tunnel. As I could feel the trailer wanting to pass me, the whole rig eager to jackknife. In the feed, the driver's windshield filled with something pale. A face. A huge. Pressed against the glass from outside. No breath, no frost patterns. Just skin like wax and eyes like wet stones. The driver in the feed slammed his brakes. I slammed mine too. My truck didn't slow. The brakes went soft like stepping on a sponge. My stomach dropped. The GPS speaker said, "You can't stop, you already agreed." I didn't agree to anything, I shouted. The voice chuckled. By looking, it said. In the feed, the other driver's cab filled with darkness. The pale face vanished. The shadows inside moved like they were crawling out of the dashboard. The driver's eyes rolled back. His mouth opened. And from his throat came a voice that was not his. It spoke through my GPS. Now you drive. My hands went numb. For a split second, I saw my own reflection in the GPS screen. But it wasn't my face. It was the other driver's face, eyes glassy, staring. The timestamp ticked. 010647. 010648. The numbers on my dash matched. My truck barreled forward. Then the road ahead dipped, and ice heave, a subtle rise and fall that could flip a trailer if you hit it fast. I knew it was there. I'd driven this stretch before. I tried to steer slightly left to take it at an angle. The wheel turned, but the truck didn't. The steering was disconnected. The GPS speaker whispered straight on. The fade showed the other truck hit the heave. The camera jolted. The world tilted. A horrible grinding sound filled the feed as metal met ice. My own cab tilted. Not as much, but enough that my coffee thermos rolled off the dash and burst against the floor. Hot coffee smelled like burnt dirt in the cold air. I gritted my teeth, forcing my body to move. I reached down, found the GPS cord, and jammed the bare wires into my cigarette lighter port. Sparks flew. The cab filled with the scent of ozone. The GPS screen stuttered. The feed froze on the other driver's face mid-scream. The voice shrieked high and furious. My accelerator pedal sprang back under my foot. My truck slowed. I almost cried with relief. Then the frozen GPS image changed. The other driver's face stopped screaming. It smiled. Slowly, like it had been waiting. And in the reflection of his eyes, I saw my own cab. Not from my perspective, but from somewhere behind my seat. As if something unseen was watching me from the sleeper. A soft rustle came from the bunk, like a heavy coat sliding across fabric. As I didn't turn around, I drove slower now, hands rigid. The GPS, still wounded and leaking black fluid, whispered one last thing in that calm, cheerful voice. Arriving at destination. The reefer trailer behind me gave a low thud. Then another. Like something inside had stood up and braced itself against the doors, ready for me to stop and let it out. Story 4, the load that breathed. The reefer temperature alarm went off at -40. Not because it was too warm, but because it was too cold. That shouldn't happen. A reefer fights heat. It's built for summer runs, produce meat vaccines. Out here on Alaska ice roads, your problem is keeping diesel from turning to gel and your fingers from snapping like sticks. But my display flashed, temp low check unit. And from the trailer, I heard a sound. A slow inhale. A slow exhale. Like something huge and tired was sleeping inside my sealed load. I was doing a night run from Prudhoe Bay back toward Fairbanks, hauling palletized medical freezers, big white crates, serial numbers, paperwork thick as a phone book. The seal number matched the bill. I pulled into a turnout by a pipeline maintenance shack because the alarm wouldn't stop. Wind slapped the trailer's side. My breath made crystals in my beard. I walked back with my flashlight cutting a narrow cone through spindrift. The reefer unit's fan whined. Then it paused. In the pause, the breathing sound became clearer. Not the fan. Not the wind. Breathing. I pressed my gloved palm to the trailer wall. The metal flexed outward slightly, like a ribcage under skin. As I jerked my hand back, the trailer flexed again. Out. In. My throat tightened. I told myself it was thermal expansion, pressure changes, the unit cycling. Anything but what my body knew, something inside was alive. My seal was intact. The doors were latched, and no one could be in there. Yet as I stood in the dark, a muffled sound came from inside. A wet clicking, like someone rolling their tongue against their teeth. My radio crackled. Oh, Unit 7B, this is Coldfoot Dispatch. You stopped. I grabbed the mic with numb fingers. Yeah, I said, reefers acting strange, temps dropping too low. Oh, silence. Then dispatch asked, what's your seal number? And I read it off. More silence. Then quietly, that seal number was reported missing last month. My stomach dropped. Oh, what? Last month, dispatch repeated, voice tight. Driver named Ileana Park. Reefer load, same route. She never arrived. Her rig never found. But her seal numbers, they were entered in the system. Like someone wanted us to know it. The breathings behind me deepened. I stared at the trailer doors. The seal hung there, white plastic, unbroken. My own flashlight beam trembled. A dispatch said, listen, do not open that trailer, you understand me. A soft thump came from inside. Then another, like a knee hitting the walls. A driver, dispatch snapped. I hear something, I said. The air felt thicker around my head, like pressure before a storm. A dispatch's voice lowered. We've had reports. Ice road drivers hearing movement in sealed reefers. Guys stopping, opening up, thinking there's a stowaway. They don't call back. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. The clicking inside the trailer stopped. Then a voice, muffled through insulation, spoke. Not dispatch. A woman's. Oh, please, it said. My noses went weak. The voice was close to my ear, but it came from behind the metal. Oh, please, I'm freezing, it said. I swallowed hard. Ileana, I whispered. Well, the voice hesitated, then said my name. Perfectly. My scalp prickled. As I hadn't told dispatch my name, I hadn't said it on the radio. The voice said, open it, just a crack, I can't feel my hands. My breath came fast. The seal was unbroken. How did it know my names? Dispatch was still talking, but my ears were full of blood. The trailer wall flexed outward again. Harder. A ripple ran down the length of the metal like a muscle contracting, while the reefer unit screamed as if straining. The temperature display dropped. Then, the air around the unit frosting instantly. My eyelashes stuck together when I blinked. As I backed away, the voice inside grew more urgent. Please, it said, and now it wasn't muffled. It was right at the door seam. It hurts, I can't. Something scraped inside. Nails. Then another. A slow dragging across the inner door. The seal swung gently, untouched, as if a breeze moved it. But there was no breeze here. The wind was on the other side. As I ran back toward the cab, the snow sucked at my boots. Behind me, the trailer made a sound like a deep sigh. The entire box shuddered. When I climbed into the cab and slammed the door, the smell hit me. That sweet rotten odor again. It wasn't outside. It was inside my truck. As I turned, on the bunk, my sleeping bag had been pushed aside. As a patch of frost on the wall had melted into a wet handprint, and carved into the condensation, as if written by a fingertip from the inside, were letters. Open. I grabbed the ignition, forced the truck into gear, and pulled out. The reefer alarm continued to scream. The breathing continued. And the voice inside the trailer, now steady and calm, started to sing. The lullabies. One my mother used to hum when I was small. I hadn't heard it in 20 years. The road ahead was blank. The storm behind me thickened. And in my mirrors, the reefer doors bulged outward as if something inside had finally sat up. I drove faster. I did not look back again. But every time the trailer flexed, I felt it in my own ribs, like my body was learning to breathe in time with it. The Story 5 Pipeline Man. The figure along the pipeline waved me down with a flashlight that wasn't flashing. It was pulsing. A bright dims bright like a heartbeat. I should have kept going. Everyone knows you don't stop for random walkers on the ice roads unless you want to get robbed, stranded, or worse. But the man was in a maintenance parka with Alieska patches. And his other hand held a flare. The flare's smoke drifted sideways, then upward, then sideways again, confused by wind that changed direction too fast. As I eased off the throttle, tires hissing on hard-packed snow. As I rolled closer, I saw his face. He didn't have a beard. Out here, even teenagers grow beards. His cheeks were smooth, waxy, with a faint blue tint. He pointed at my trailer. Your seal, he said. His voice carried through the closed window, muffled but clear. As I frowned, leaned forward. How can you hear me? I muttered. He pointed again, urgent. Your seal number is wrong, he said. If you cross the next span with that seal, you won't come back. My heart gave a stupid little jump. You dot, I called through the glass. He shook his head slowly. Something else, he said, and his breath didn't fog. I felt my skin tighten. The man's flashlight pulsed again. Bright. Dim. Bright. Each pulse made the pipeline beside us look like it was flexing, swelling under snow cover like a vein. I cracked my window an inch. The cold bit. The man lined close. The smell that rolled in wasn't tundra. It was warm metal. And antiseptic. Like a hospital. He said, "What's your name?" I hesitated, Mason. He then nodded as if confirming something. Okay, Mason, don't say your full name, don't say where you're going. Don't answer questions if anyone asks you those things. Not on the radio, not in person. Why? He lifted his flare hand. The flare flame bent sideways toward my cab like it was being pulled. From inside my dash vents, a faint whisper answered. Mason, it said. My stomach dropped. The man's eyes widened. It's already listening, he murmured. You need to turn around. I can't, I said. I've got a schedule I've got. Your schedule won't matter where you're headed, he snapped. Behind him, along the pipeline, something moved. A dark knot sliding under the snow cover, like a rat inside a bedsheet. It traveled toward us fast. Well, the man stepped back. He pointed his flashlight at the moving knot. The light pulsed brighter. The knot slowed. Then surged. The snow above it lifted. A shape rose tall, thin, coated in frost. It unfolded like a person standing after a long crouch. But it had no face. Only a smooth oval with a seam down the middle. The seam quivered. Then it opened. Not like a mouth. Like a zipper being pulled apart. Inside was darkness and a wet glimmer of teeth. My hands went numb. The faceless thing turned its seam toward me. From inside it, a voice spoke. Not the man's. Not mine's. My wife's. Mason, it called softly, are you coming home? My throat closed. I hadn't heard her voice in 2 months. Because my wife was dead. The pipeline man slammed his flare into the snow. A fire hissed, throwing red light. The faceless thing recoiled as if burned by the color. The pipeline man yelled, drive. I didn't think I hit the accelerator. The truck lurched forward. As I passed him, the pipeline man grabbed my mirror bracket with gloved fingers. He leaned close to my window. Don't look back, he shouted. If it thinks you're checking, it gets closer. As I nodded, eyes fixed on the road. The faceless thing's voice, my wife's voice, followed. Oh, you left me, it said, hurt. Oh, the dash vents whispered. Oh, the radio hissed. Oh, the GPS blinked on by itself. As a new route line appeared. Straight toward the next pipeline span. As I fought the wheel, trying to keep to the road. The truck pulled slightly right, like the tires wanted to obey the line. In my side mirror, I caught a glimpse, just a flash. The pipeline man was gone. No footprints. No flare. Only the snow, smooth and windswept. And along the pipeline, the dark knot moved again, faster now, racing beside my truck. I clenched my jaw, refusing to look. The cabs felt warmer. Then too warm. The heater hadn't changed. But my skin prickled as if under a hot lamp. A voice from the sleeper said, Mason, tell me your full name. My heart stuttered. As I kept my eyes forward. The road signs blurred in spindrift. As the pipeline span approached, a long bridge where the road passed under the elevated line. My truck drifted right. I corrected left. It drifted again. Like a magnet. The voice in the sleeper chuckled. Just say it, it coaxed, and I'll let you stop fighting. The windshield fogged at the edges. In the fog, letters formed as if traced by a finger. A full name. I gripped the wheel until my wrists ached. The pipeline span loomed. The GPS voice said, in 500 feet arrive. I screamed pure frustration and reached down, ripped the GPS mount off the dash. It tore free with a wet sound. A black fluid oozed. The cab filled with antiseptic smell. The truck wobbled. Then abruptly the pulling force eased. I shot under the pipeline's span. But for half a second the world went silent. So no engines, no wind. The darkness under the span felt thick and alive. A whisper brushed my ear. Thank you, Mason, it said. Then I burst out the other side. The sound slammed back in. The road was empty. The pipeline beside me was still. But my trailer seal, visible in my mirror, was no longer intact. It dangled in two pieces. And in the break, something pale protruded briefly, like a fingertip testing the cold air. I did not stop. I drove all the way to Fairbanks without breathing right. At the yard, when they opened my trailer, the load was perfectly stacked medical freezers. Except each freezer door was slightly ajar. And inside each one, frost had formed a single word on the inner wall. Amazing. Story 6, The Convoy with No Driver. The first truck in the convoy didn't have anyone in it. I saw it clearly when the lightning flashed, blue-white, silent in the polar night. The cab lit up for an instant. An empty driver's seat. A hands-free wheel. Yet the rig held lane perfectly, chains throwing sparks on bare patches of ice. I was third in line hauling drilling equipment. We deformed a weather convoy 4 trucks, spaced tight enough to keep visual, close enough that if one went down we could pull them out. We agreed to keep radios hot. But on channel 19 there was only a low humming tone, not static, a single note. It made my teeth ache. Is anybody reading? I said. No answer. The lead truck's taillights blinked once. Twice like a signal. Then it accelerated. The second truck followed. My dispatcher had warned us, don't break formation in a storm. You lose sight, you lose your reference, you become a parked story someone finds in spring. So I followed. My stomach hated me for it. The humming on the radio rose slightly in pitch. As the road narrowed, the pipeline vanished. Only reflectors on poles, half buried, blinking in my headlights like eyes. The lightning flashed again. The lead truck's cab was still empty. The passenger seat was empty too. But behind the seats, in the sleeper area, something shifted. A slow movement. Like a person sitting up after a long sleep. My heart hammered. As I keyed the mic, lid truck identified. The humming tone turned into a voice. Not words. A chorus of breaths. Inhales and exhales layered out of sync. Like a group of people sleeping in the same room. The second truck's brake lights flashed. Then it swerved slightly. I saw its trailer fishtail. The driver corrected. Then the second truck's cab light turned on. A face appeared in the side window, pressed close. Not the driver's face. A pale face with a wide mouth. It smiled. The second truck's horn blared. A long panicked note. Then its engine revved hard and it surged forward, closing the gap with the empty lid truck. As I grabbed my mic, Eddie's you okay? As Eddie was in that second truck. Oh, he didn't answer. The humming voice said, "Stay close." My skin went cold in a different way. "Oh, that's not Eddie," I whispered. The lightning flashed. Well, for an instant, I saw the cab interior of the second truck. Eddie was in the driver's seat, but his head was turned too far, chin over shoulder, looking into his sleeper. And his eyes were rolled back white. Something in his sleeper had its hands on his shoulders. Guiding, the convoy accelerated again. My speedometer climbed past 50. On ice, the road ahead dipped into a low stretch between snow banks that rose taller than my hood. It felt like entering a trench. The humming voice whispered through the radio, no gaps. I tried to slow to create distance. My truck didn't respond right away. The throttle stuck for half a second. The engine pulled. My foot came off the pedal. The truck kept accelerating. A panic buzzed in my limbs. I reached for the engine brake switch, flipped it. Oh, nothing. The humming turned into a soft laugh. Then a new sound filled my cab. What's happening? From the ceiling. Above the visor. One tap. Then a two. Then a slow drag across the headliner like fingernails. I stared up. The fabric bulged slightly downward, as if something pressed from the roof. It's impossible. But the bulge moved, crawling toward the driver's side. My breath came shallow. The convoy's taillights ahead blinked once, twice. A signal. The lead truck slowed. The second truck slowed. The fourth truck behind me, Lana's rig, flashed its brights, then honked. Her voice finally cut through the humming, strained and shaking. "Gavin," she said, "something S in my cab, I can't." Her scream cut off. The radio reverted to hummings. My mirror filled with her headlights as she surged forward, tailgating me. Then lightning flashed. Her cab was empty too. My throat closed. The convoy rolled into a wide pullout I didn't recognize. Flat ice. A circle of tall poles with reflectors like a staging area. The lead truck stopped. The second stopped. I stopped. Lana's empty truck stopped behind me. Our engines idled, a chorus of diesel. The humming voice on the radio became clearer. It spoke in a dozen overlapping tones. Park lights on, stay inside. My hands shook. I should have driven away, broken the rule. But the storm around us thickened, wind whining through poles. And beyond the circle of reflectors, the darkness looked solid. I sat there staring at the empty lead cab. Then its driver door opened. No one stepped out. The door opened wider. From the darkness of the cab, a shape extended, long and pale. In arms. It reached down, feeling the ground like it didn't know what snow was. Then another arms. Then a head. It wasn't a person. It was something that wore a person shape like a loose coat. It unfolded onto the ice on too many joints. It stood upright. Its face was smooth, featureless. except for a mouth. A mouth that opened too wide. From that mouth came Eddie's voice. Gavin, it called, come help me check my chains. My stomach lurched. The passenger door of my own truck clicked. Was unlocked. I hadn't touched it. The handle lifted slowly, inviting. And above me, the headliner bulge pressed harder, as if something inside my roof was trying to push through. The humming voice whispered, no gaps. I understood then. The convoy wasn't for safety. It was for collection. I grabbed my seatbelt cutter, sliced the belt off my chest, and with shaking hands I jammed the truck into reverse. The gear engaged. The truck rolled back straight into Lana's empty rig. Metal shrieked. The impact jolted my cab. The headliner bulge recoiled. For a heartbeat, the humming faltered. I stomped the accelerator. This time my truck obeyed. I lurched forward, breaking the circle. The reflectors behind me winked out one by one like eyes closing. On my radio, the humming became a furious, hungry sound. And as I drove blind into the storm, I realized my mirror still showed taillights. The convoy was following. Even without drivers. Even without permissions. And inside my roof, something crawled, keeping pace with my heartbeat. Story 7, the frozen rest area. I woke up because someone was scraping my windshield from the outside. A slow, steady scrape. Not the frantic shoveling of a stranded driver. A methodical sound like a butcher sharpening a knife. My cab was dark, engine off, battery low. I'd parked at a rest pullout I didn't remember choosing, exhausted enough that I'd promised myself 5 minutes with my eyes closed. Now the glass in front of me was turning clear one strip at a time. My breath tasted metallic. The cold had crept into the sleeper. My toes were numb even inside socks. The scrape continued. I didn't move. The last thing you do on an Alaska ice road is startle whoever's outside. My hand slid under the seat and found my tire thumper. I gripped it. The scraping stopped. A shadow passed across the windshield. Then a face appeared in the newly cleared strip. A woman's. Her hair was frozen into stiff ropes around her hood. Her cheeks were cracked, skin split like over-dried clay. Her eyes were open too wide. She smiled. The smile looked painful. And her breath didn't fog the glass. I stayed still. Her fingers tapped the windshield. Not with gloves. Bare fingertips, pale and swollen. She mouthed a word. I leaned forward slightly and read her lips. Hungry. My stomach clenched. I sat up slowly, careful. The woman tilted her head. Behind her in the pullout, my headlights faintly lit other shapes. Trucks. 3 of them. Parked crooked like someone had stopped in a panic. Their cab lights were on. In one, I saw a figure slumped over the steering wheel. Still, the woman outside my windshield lifted something. A scraper. But it wasn't plastic. It was bone. Long curved sharpened. She dragged it across the glass again, making a sound that vibrated in my teeth. I reached for my keys. Well, the ignition clicked. Well, the engine tried to turn over, then stalled. A battery. The cold had eaten it. The woman's smile widened. She pressed her forehead to the glass. A frost formed around it instantly, like her skin leached heat. Her lips moved again. Opens. From the darkness behind her, another face appeared. The man's. His beard was a solid block of ice. His eyes were milky. He pressed his face beside hers. Then another. A child. A small cheeks blue. I froze. There shouldn't be a child on the ice road. Not in this weather. Not at this hour. Their mouths moved together. Open they mouthed. My hands shook. I looked toward the other trucks. One cab door was open. No one inside. The snow in front of it was smooth. No footprints. My chest tightened. The woman outside lifted her bone scraper and tapped the corner of the windshield. Don't tap. Don't tap. Don't tap. Each tap left a little white mark, a spiderweb of frost that spread. She was drawing something. A circle. A symbol. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. As in the mirror, my sleeper curtain moved. A slow sway. Like someone behind it was breathing. My throat closed. As I hadn't pulled the curtains. As I reached behind me without turning, felt for the curtain edge. My fingers touched fabric. Then touched something else. As a hand. A cold slick. It gripped my wrist. As I yanked forward screaming, and the hand vanished like it had never been. The woman outside laughed silently, shoulders shaking. The frost circle on my windshield completed itself. Inside the circle, letters formed in ice. I'll stay. The man beside her lifted his own scraper. Not bones. A piece of metal. A truck key. He dragged it across the glass, carving a line. The sound made my head hurt. I stared at the line. It wasn't a scratch. It was a crack. A hairline fracture spreading. They weren't trying to get me to open. They were making their own way. A panic shot through me. I grabbed my thermos and hurled it at the windshield. The thermos bounced, didn't break. The crack spread anyway. The woman's hand pressed against the glass. Her fingertips sank slightly, as if the windshield had softened. The cold in the cab intensified. My breath turned to fog, then to crystals. I forced myself to think. Oh, heat. I needed heat. I reached down, found my emergency propane heater small, meant for short use. As I flicked it on, a tiny flame bloomed. Warmth kissed my fingers. As outside, the woman's eyes widened. The man hissed an audible sound this time, sharp and angry. Their frost circle on the windshield began to melt at the edges. The crack slowed. They lined back, faces twisting. All good. As I held the heater up like a weapons, the child's face contorted into something not childlike. As its mouth opened too wide, it pressed its teeth to the glass. A tiny teeth, a bit, not sharp. It bit. The sound was a crunch. The glass fractured further. The woman's hand plunged through the windshield as if it were slush. Her fingers entered my cab. They were not fingers anymore. They were long and jointed wrong, with nails like ice picks. I screamed and swung the propane heater at her hand. The flame licked her skin. She recoiled with a wet, sizzling sound. A black fluid dripped onto my dash, steaming. Her face twisted in rage. The man and child pressed closer. The windshield crack raced. As I didn't have time, I grabbed my door handle and slammed it open into the woman's face. She staggered back. A cold air knifed into the cab. As I jumped out, tire thumper in hand, and ran. Not toward the road. Toward the maintenance shack I now saw at the edge of the pullout, dark, half buried. I hadn't noticed it before. The snow was deep. My boots sank. Behind me, the scraping resumed, faster, frantic. They weren't following in the snow. They were sliding, gliding over drifts like sleds. I reached the shack door. As it was unlocked, I threw myself inside. The air inside was warmer by a fraction, enough to sting my lungs. The shack was empty except for a cot and a bulletin board. On the board, pinned under plastic, was a laminated notice. Winter rest area closed, do not park. Below it, written in marker by someone shaking, were words. They hate fire. Outside, something hit the shack wall. Then another. The door handle began to turn. Slow, patient, like someone who knew I'd eventually have to come out. I backed into the corner, propane heater trembling in my hands. Through the shack's small window, I saw my truck. Its cab light was on. A figure sat in the driver's seat. It turned its head and looked at me. It smiled, and I realized with a sick lurch that it was wearing my face. Outside, the scraping started on the shack window. A bone on glass. Methodical. A hungry. A story ate the ice fog mirror. The ice fog made two roads out of one. I watched it happen in my headlights. A second set of reflectors appeared to my right, perfectly spaced, leading into the white like a parallel highway. The fog was so thick it looked solid, and the reflectors in it blinked like stars trapped in milk. My real road reflectors were on the left. On two roads. My GPS froze. My CB hissed. And in the fog, I saw a truck driving the right-hand road, matching my speed. That shouldn't be possible. There was no second lane, no service road, just tundra. Yet the truck was there, an older Freightliner, rust on the fenders, amber markers glowing. It rode level as if on perfect pavement. I glanced at its cab. The driver looked at me. It was my father. My hands went icy. My father died in an accident when I was 12, rolled his rig in a spring thaw on the park's highway. I remembered the smell of wet mud on his clothes at the funeral. I remembered how his hands had looked too clean, like someone had scrubbed him for display. Now he was driving beside me on a road that wasn't there. Oh, he raised a hand, not a wave, a gesture beckoning. My throat tightened. The right hand reflectors pulsed brighter. My truck drifted right. I corrected left. Well, the drift continued. Like the road itself had a slope. The other truck's window rolled down. I expected a voice. Instead, cold fog poured from his cab like smoke. And inside that fog, shapes moved. Our faces, a pale pressed together. My father's mouth opened. His voice came out through my own radio, not his. Come on, he said gently. It's safer over here. I shook my head, muttering, no, no. The right-hand reflectors appeared closer now. I could see their bases. They weren't planted in ground. They floated a few inches above the snow, as if the road was suspended. The idea made my stomach flip. I'd heard stories, ice fog playing tricks, mirages of headlights, but this was too structured, too deliberate. My father's eyes looked wrong. They weren't browns like I remembered. They were colorless like ice. Well, he smiled, and in that smile I saw teeth too perfect. I stomped the brake lightly. My truck slowed. Well, the other truck slowed too, matching. I accelerated. It accelerated. It was tethered. The radio crackled with a second voice, female strained. Don't follow him, she said. I jerked the mic. Who is this? Oh, doesn't matter, she said. Just don't. That's not your dad. It wears what you miss. My skin prickled. The other truck's headlights brightened, washing my cab in pale light. The fog inside its cab thickened. I saw more faces. Some were upside down. Some pressed sideways, mouths open as if screaming underwater. My father's hands on the wheel were not hands. They were too long. The fingers jointed wrong. He turned his head toward the right-hand road and nodded, patient. The reflectors on the right pulsed again. My steering wheel twitched under my hands. I fought it. The wheel pulled. The female voice on the radio said, if you take that road, you'll keep driving forever. You'll think you're making progress. You'll see towns, lights, people. And every time you stop, you'll be farther from where you started. My heart thudded. How do you know? I demanded. She exhaled shakily. Because my husband took it 2 winters ago. He called me from his cab, said he found a better road, said it was clear, said my brother was driving it. My brother's been dead since 2011. A cold nausea twisted in my gut. The other truck drifted closer, as if the fog road was narrowing. My father's face pressed toward his window. The fog around him swirled. His voice softened. You look tired. You can sleep. I'll take you. My eyes stung. The idea hit like a drug. Rest, surrender, not fighting the wheel, not fighting the storm. My eyelids felt heavy. Well, the radio hissed. The female voice snapped, "Don't let it talk you into comfort. Comfort is how it opens you." As I bit my tongue hard enough to taste blood, the pain cleared my head. As I did the only thing I could think of. As I turned my cabin lights on. All bright, all harsh. The interior reflected in my windshield. For a second, I saw myself. Then behind me in my own sleeper was a shape. Tall, standing too close. Its face was my father's, but stretched wrong. Mouth too wide, eyes too blank. It pressed its hands to my shoulders from behind. I screamed and whipped around. The sleeper was empty, but my shoulders hurt, like fingers had dug into muscle. Outside, the fog road truck's cab filled with darkness. My father's face fell away like a mask sliding off. Behind it was a blank oval with a seam. The seam opened. A wet line of teeth. The thing's voice came through my radio in my father's tone. "Oh, you saw me," it said, satisfied. "Now you know the way." The right-hand reflectors flared bright. My truck lurched right. I fought the wheel with everything I had, shoulders straining. The trailer swung. Chains screamed. The rig fish-tailed. For a moment, both roads blurred. Then I made a choice. I aimed at the left-hand reflectors, the real ones, and I committed. The truck slammed over a drift. The suspension groaned. My teeth clacked. The cab jolted. The right-hand reflectors vanished as if someone wiped them off the world. The other truck disappeared into fog. My radio went silent. I drove shaking, breath coming in ragged bursts. Minutes later, my headlights caught a real sign, one I recognized. A warning for a narrow bridge. Relief almost made me sob. Then I saw something carved into the sign's reflective surface. A message scratched deep as if by a knife. "A thank you for choosing." Under it smaller. "I see you on the other road." And as I passed the bridge, my truck's cabin lights flickered once. In that flicker, my windshield reflected a smiling face behind me. My father's. Closer than my bunk. Close enough to breathe against my ear. Story 9, The Lost Logbook. I found the logbook on the side of the ice road, pages fluttering like a wounded bird. It was half buried in drifted snow wedged against a reflector post. The cover was stiff with frost. The name on the front was stamped in neat block letters, SCRENAKLINE. As I knew that name. As every driver who worked the winter haul knew it. She vanished last season. No wreck, no SOS. 1 minute her rig was on the satellite tracker, the next it was. I should have left the logbook. Instead, I stopped. A curiosity is a hunger too. I grabbed it with my glove, brought it into my cab, and the moment it crossed my threshold, my dash clock skipped backward 3 minutes. 02:44 became 02:41. My stomach dropped. I stared at the clock. As it ticked forward again like nothing happened. As I opened the logbook, the pages were filled with normal entries, mileage, fuel, rest, notes about chain checks and weather. Then halfway through, the handwriting changed. As it became frantic, or the ink was smeared, or the entry read, mile markers are lying. Below it another. So something is adding time. I swallowed. Outside, the storm pressed against the windshield. Inside, the cab felt too quiet. I flipped another page. As SCRENA had written, I see my truck ahead of me. Not in MIRRORS. Ahead. The heater blew warm air that smelled faintly of old coffee, though I hadn't brewed any. I flipped another page. The handwriting became shakier. As ITS using MY logbook. It writes back. My skin prickled. The page beneath that entry was blank. Then slowly dark ink seeped into it. Not from a pen, or from the paper itself. Letters formed stroke by stroke, as if invisible fingers wrote from the underside. A hello, it wrote. My breath caught. I stared. The letters were too neat. My own handwritings. The ink continued. Thank you for picking me up. My hands went numb. I slammed the logbook shut. The truck's interior lights flickered. My dash clock jumped forward 5 minutes. 02:46. I hadn't moved. My heart hammered. I threw the logbook onto the passenger seat. The cab smelled suddenly of paper and mildew. The radio crackled. A voice said, "You found it." I grabbed the mic. "Who's this?" The voice sounded young, female. "I'm Serena," it said. My throat tightened. "Oh, Serena." "Declined." "Oh, yes," she whispered. "Don't read it. Don't let it see you read it. I made that mistake." My eyes flicked to the passenger seat. The logbook cover was slowly opening, as if pushed by a breeze. But the windows were closed. The heater fan shifted, blowing colder. "Where are you?" I demanded. Serena's voice shook, still driving. A pause. Then quieter. "I've been driving for I don't know. My clock doesn't work. My body does. As I get hungry, I get tired, I never arrive." As my mouth went dry. The logbook pages began to turn by themselves. Vovlib, Vovlib, Vovlib. They stopped on a blank page. Ink seeped again. As a new line formed. "What is your name?" The radio hissed. Serena screamed, "Don't answer." The question sat on the page like a trap. My name felt like a physical thing in my throat, wanting to come out. The heater blew colder air. The cab lights dimmed. The ink wrote another lines. "You can rest if you tell me." My eyelids grew heavy. The storm outside seemed distant. The idea of rest tasted sweet. Serena's voice broke. "That's how it got me," it asked. I answered. Then my time wasn't mine anymore. It writes your hours, it drives your miles, it decides when you stop. Well, the logbook's page trembled as if eager. My throat tightened. I tried to push the logbook off the seat. My arm moved slow, sluggish, as if the air had thickened. The ink wrote, "You already started." The dash clock jumped backward again. 0246 to 0240. My stomach lurched. My memories shifted, subtle, like a dream sliding. I couldn't remember stopping to pick up the book. I could see it in my mind, but it felt like someone else's memory. A panic snapped me awake. I grabbed the logbook with both hands and yanked it open to the last page. A list was written there. All names, all dozens, each with a date and a mile marker. Some names I recognized from truck stop walls, from missing posters. At the bottom, a blank line waited. My own pen, rolled across the dash by itself and dropped onto the open page. The radio whispered not Serena now, but something layered and calm. All right. My hand twitched. I clenched it into a fist. Serena sobbed, "Please burn it. Fire is the only thing that slows it." As I didn't have a flare, but I had a cigarette lighter. My hands shook as I flicked it. A small flame. As I held it to the corner of the logbook page. The paper didn't catch right away. It hissed. The ink darkened. Then the flame took. A thin line of fire crawled across the page. The radio emitted a sound like a choking gasp. The cab temperature dropped suddenly, breath turning to crystals. The logbook fought. The pages fluttered violently, trying to smother the flame. I held the lighter steady, teeth clenched. The fire spread, licking ink. The names warped. Then the flame reached the bottom blank lines. The ink there bubbled. A name appeared in my handwritings. Diedrich Hawthorne. My name. I screamed rage and fear, and slammed the logbook down onto the floor, stomping it as it burned. The smell was awful, paper and something like hair. The radio shrieked. Serena's voice cried, "Keep it burning." I did. As I watched the logbook blacken and curls. Finally it went limp, a charred husk. The cab warmed slightly. The dash clock steadied. I sat trembling, staring at the ashes. On the radio, Serena whispered, exhausted, "Thank you." Then her line went dead. Silence. I drove the rest of the night with my hands shaking. At dawn, when I stopped at the yard, I opened my own logbook to make an entry. The page was already filled. In neat handwriting that matched mine perfectly, it read, Diedrich Hawthorne, mile 143. And under it, "You can't burn what you already are." Story 10, The Last Exit on the Ice. The exit sign appeared where the map said there was nothing. A green reflective sign on two posts, half-rhymed with frost. Last exit services 1 mile. All services. On an Alaska ice road. At 03, 12 in a storm that made the world feel unfinished. I laughed once, sharp, disbelieving, because the alternative was panic. Then my fuel gauge dipped. Not slowly. It dropped a quarter tank in the time it took me to blink. My throat went dry. The heater blew colder. The engine note changed, a subtle strain. The exit sign glowed brighter, almost eager. On the CB, a voice said, "Take it, warm up." I didn't recognize the voice. It sounded like a man trying to be comforting. That made it worse. I checked my mirrors. No trucks behind me. No convoy. Just white. The exit ramp came up fast, plowed smooth, clearly used. My truck drifted toward it like the tires preferred it. As I fought the wheel, the truck resisted. My fuel gauge dropped another notch. My hands tightened. I could keep going and risk running out in the storm, or take the exit and risk whatever services meant. The heater sputtered. The cab chilled. My eyelashes stuck when I blinked. The exit ramp beckoned. I took it. The moment my tires crossed onto the ramp, the wind stopped. Not eased. Stopped. The silence hit like a pressure change. My ears popped. Ahead a sea. Luster of lights glowed, warm yellow, steady. A truck stopped. A real building. I felt relief so sharp it hurt. The sign out front read, North Star Service. I'd never heard of it, but it looked normal. A gravel lot packed with snow. A fuel pumps. A diner glow. A few trucks parked. I rolled in slow. My tires crunched. The air felt warmer. My fuel gauge steadied. I parked by a pump and shut down. My hands shook from tension. I stepped out. The cold wasn't as brutal here. More like a normal Alaskan night, not the killing bite of the open road. The smell hit me. Fried food. Coffee. Diesel. Humans. I walked toward the diner doors. The bell jingled as I opened it. Warmth washed over me. For a moment, I could have cried. Then I saw the people inside. They sat at booths and counter stools eating. But they weren't talking. Not one word. Their jaws moved in slow, synchronized chews. Their eyes were fixed forward, unblinking, like mannequins with food in their mouths. A waitress stood behind the counter. She smiled. "Seat yourself," she said. Her voice had that same speaker-flat quality I'd heard in other places on the road. I hesitated. "Do you have diesel?" I asked. She nodded. "Always," she said. Her smile didn't change. I glanced at a man in a booth. His plate held pancakes. His fork rose. His mouth opened. Inside his mouth were not teeth. They were small reflective numbers. Like mile markers. My stomach lurched. As I backed toward the door, the waitress's smile widened. Don't go, she said gently. You're almost empty. As outside, through the diner window, my truck sat by the pump. A figure stood beside it. It was me. The same jacket. The same bunny. It opened my driver door and climbed in. My breath stopped. The waitress's voice softened. We'll take good care of it. We take good care of everyone who stops. As I grabbed the door handles, the bell jingled again as I yanked it open. A cold air hit. My truck's engine turned over. The figure in my cab started it easily. Then it pulled away from the pump and rolled toward the lot exit. I sprinted, boots slipping. "Oh, hey," I shouted. The figure, my face, looked at me through the windshield. It smiled. Then it raised a hand and waved. Not a goodbye. Oh, thanks. Then it drove back toward the ramp. I chased, lungs burning. The lot felt suddenly larger than it should be, the distance stretching. My legs slowed like running in deep water. The diner lights behind me brightened, humming. The people inside turned their heads in unison to watch. Their mouths opened slightly. I heard a faint chorus of breathing. The ramp ahead loomed. My truck reached it. As it crossed onto the ice road, the wind resumed roaring. The storm swallowed the tail lights. I stumbled to a stop. My chest heaved. As I looked back, the truck stop behind me was still there. Warm lights. Promises. But the sign out front had changed. It no longer read North Star Service. It read, Last Exit. And beneath it, in smaller letters, Services you. My fuel gauge in my mind dipped. Not in the truck. In me. Like whatever was happening wasn't about diesel. It was about time. About identity. About being replaced. The diner door opened. The waitress stepped out. She held out a steaming cup of coffee. Warm up, she said. Her breath did not fog. Behind her, the silent diners rose from their booths and filed toward the door in perfect order. Their eyes fixed on me. Their mouths full of mile-marker teeth. The storm howled. The ice road waited. And somewhere out there, my truck, my life, was driving without me, heading toward a mile marker that had been waiting a very long time for my name.